right, are you ready to dive on in?
Let's dive in.
Awesome, awesome. Hey everybody, Andrew here, otherwise known as that guy who wrote the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, coming in the dankest corners of the awesome, marvelous offices. And it's so funny, my guest, Kris Sugatan, looks like $1,000,000 with the awesome background, and I'm hiding because actually there's work that's getting done all around where I'm at. This is the only quiet room where we can have this conversation, but I think when people hear this talk, they're going to understand why I didn't want to delay it, just so my background could look a little more purdy. You know what I'm saying? But Kris, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the first featured interview in my channel.
Awesome. I'm really so excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Yeah, I am beyond ecstatic, to be honest. And I think depending on, some people might already know about you, because when people buy my book and they sign up for my bonuses, one of the emails is me telling them about you and talking about scripting and talking about your journey of how you went from $0 or really $300 in the bank, if we want to be like really exact about it. But you went from that to $1,000,000 in revenue in your business in about 16 months. It's less than a year and a half for those that aren't doing a lot of math right now. And I think it's really cool because obviously, there's something to be said about your savvy, your business intelligence, those qualities, but also you yourself brought up to me how, and you didn't describe it as scripting, but I remember the last time you and I had a conversation and we were talking about business, Law of Attraction came up and you started telling me that you were doing scripting, where you were writing what you wanted your life to be as if it had already happened. And I don't know, I think a lot of people, first of all, for me to talk about, what I've done in my life, there's something that rings almost hollow because people like, well, you're the author and you're trying to sell your book and, how do I know? So for me, it's always so much more exciting to talk to somebody else and hear their story that didn't even read my book. You did this before my book was even published, and our conversation was like a month after I published the book. So that's my really long-winded, talky like introduction of like what you're about just in that regard. I don't know where this conversation is going to go, but I'm so excited. So,
and for the ride. Well, let's just
I guess we'll start with.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, we can start at the beginning. Like, there was a point where you had $300 in the bank, and as I understand it, among all the other things you were doing, you were kind of like putting in Law of Attraction tactics, techniques, methods, whatever you want to call it. You were kind of adding that to your day. So I guess I'd turn the floor over to you to describe like what you were doing exactly and what made you think, or what made you decide or inspire you to go in that specific direction.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I've learned in hindsight, but I started scripting, and to define scripting, it is the act of writing as though it was happening at the moment that I'm writing it. So even though I only had $300, actually negative at that time, in my account when I first started scripting, I acted as though I remember saying $200,000 per month in my account. I started off with $20,000 per month in my account, but I would just like move into the feeling of that much money coming into my account each month. So that's how we define scripting. And I think that I believed in it when I was at basically my lowest point of my life. And I think it was out of feeling like I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know how to get out of the situation that I was in because I had tried so many different things. And I understood that I needed to do something differently. And that's when I became very open to the messages around the Law of Attraction, which actually was a study of multiple individuals and trying to connect the patterns between all of these successful individuals. One of them was Jim Carrey's story about how he had written himself a $10 million check before he did, what was that movie that he did that he, the really funny one, gosh,
I know he did Ace Ventura, and I know that the Cable Guy is where he made 20 million for the first time.
It was even before that. It was like one of his, like in the 90s. And that was actually, he actually put a date by December of this particular year, I'm going to make 10 million, and, and he wrote himself a check. And then there was Jack Canfield, who told his story, which inspired the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And then there was Kris Sugatan, who is a billionaire investor from Silicon Valley, who talked about how when he was a kid, there wasn't even a name for what he's doing now, which is this, investing in tech. But he had written on a piece of note, which he came across in his 30s. He had written a piece of note when he was 9 years old that I am going to give money to people to start businesses. It was before there was, a word for it. And so I was like, they're tapping into this thing called faith and, envisioning. And I think by that time I understood what envisioning was. But then it wasn't until I started listening to Abraham Hicks, who was going into the spiritual aspect of the law of attraction, that I feel like it filled the gaps for me from the Secret movie, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that one thing that I've learned is that it wasn't like the things started happening for me. All of the bad things happened first, meaning that I think I was probably 4 months into scripting. And then these I feel like the bad things happened that actually catalyzed for me to be homeless and have to sell my camera and my mattress, which gained me that $300 into my account. But it's really like what needed to happen in order for me to get to what I was scripting. So I really believe that things just shift and purge, and this may not apply for everybody, but that was my purge, right? Like sometimes you have to purge those toxic relationships that is not serving your vision. Sometimes you have to purge the circumstance that is keeping you there. And so that's really what happened to me. And my starting point was I had to couch it for 3 months while I figured out not how to not go back into being a waitress, and literally this $300 was my starting point. So, and during that time, I think that when you're scripting, I think you also open up your intuition more because your energy is coming from this, like, all of a sudden your energy shifts into being inspired. And you really I feel like you really do elevate your vibration or your frequency, that it then opens up these new thoughts that are based out of inspiration rather than coming in from fear, which I think a lot of newer entrepreneurs or freelancers who are thinking about doing their own thing sort of like try to problem solve out of a sense of fear. But it's really, really effective when you problem solve out of inspiration, which I find happens after I do scripting. And so to this day, almost 4 years later, I am still scripting every single day.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now, in those answers you were giving me, something that really popped out in my mind that I did not know about you from before for our last conversation. I didn't know that while you were doing the scripting, you hit that part where bad things were happening. I found that so intriguing, and it's so good to hear that you kind of stuck with it despite that, because I think a lot of people, I talk about this in my Gravity of the Cosmos program. I call it the hard reset, where it's a thing where for whatever reason, you're doing the techniques, you're doing the methods, whatever, you're following it along, and it seems like bad things are happening, but it's kind of like, when those are happening, you've got maybe a 200-foot view, not a 30,000-foot view. And you don't know if you're being guided out of a horrible job that's going to hold you back. You don't know if you're guided out of a toxic relationship that's going to, you don't know what are the reasons that things seem like they're going bad. But what I love about what you said here, and based on what I know about you and your personality, of course, Kris is going to stick with it. I love how you didn't let that become an excuse or a reason to say, this isn't working, I'm throwing scripting aside. You kept doing it anyway, which I love to hear. And I'm curious, and we might be skipping ahead, but, you had the situation where things kind of felt like they were going backwards. Yeah. Not that anyone should judge their standard to you or to me or to anybody else, but how many days were you scripting consecutively before it felt like an actual positive result was starting to manifest in front of you?
It was 2 months. I remember, because I was scripting my ideal relationship, at the time when I first started scripting. So I remember specifically specifying a, very key words that was like very respectful, loving, fun relationship where he and I had a lot of respect, a lot of fun, and a lot of love for each other. And we would go to music festivals. Like this was like a very specific, and I actually ended up meeting like not just that, but like the epitome of that. And he and I had this 1-year relationship. And I look back at that, the words that I had used to actually describe the relationship that I wanted. And I was like, this man is literally everything that I had written about just for 2 months straight. Right. And then I think that once I got that relationship, I started scripting for even more. So then I started going for, all right, well, this is the income that I want to make because I was so poor, and, poverty, there's poor and then there's poverty, as in you don't know where your next food is going to come from or your next meal. And, you're just like in the really hanging by a thread. And so that it created so much trauma in me growing up that way that I became very obsessed with money, making money and being to the point where I never have to worry about money ever again. Until today, I am aspiring to get to a billion net worth, but it's evolved, in the very beginning, it came out of this sense of like, I never want to worry about money again, but now it's the mission has evolved. It's why, because now I have more than enough and I'm very happy, but now it's more of a much bigger mission as to why that matters, which is to show people that you can come from negative like me, because I'm estranged from my parents, have always been, to that level, no college education, no rich uncle, no rich dad, no trust, nothing, and still get to that level. And also being a minority woman, which I never thought was a thing until just recently. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a thing. Like, so like all of the, the cards stacked against me, and there's so many of us out there, regardless if you're male, female, whatever, it doesn't matter. Everybody, it's the perception, perception is, gosh, all these odds are stacked against me. And, it really is a driving mission of mine to show not the masses, but even my team, my direct team members that I mentor. This is the impact that I'm making today, is with the team members that I'm working with, right? And so it's a much bigger mission now. But it took me 2 months, and it was like I got results relatively quickly. I was shocked, and I used to spend about 30 minutes at that time scripting. I used to 30 minutes a day. I would say about 6 days a week I would spend scripting.
Right. And that was actually going to be my next question. So we're really on the same wavelength. So it sounds to me, from understanding it, it wasn't about the number of pages. It was about time, and everyone has their own way. For you, you're like, I'll just set a timer for 30 minutes and whatever comes out, comes out.
Yeah. And now I only do it for about 10 or 15 minutes now each day, and sometimes I don't have that time because my meetings start at 7 a.m. So I usually like to start in the beginning of my day, but I'll do it when I'm ready to tackle on the day, so either that's right after my meetings or before my deep work, on my deep work days before I start. I will literally, it's my way of just getting into the zone. As busy as I am, I always make time for that 10 to 15 minutes, always. And sometimes I do it multiple times a day just to get me back into this, like raising my energy. Cause I know that I really do believe too, when I look back at it, when I was scripting right before I created the agency, right before I started the agency, I was scripting like, I'm so grateful to be co-making with such brilliant, intelligent, loving and supportive team members. And to this day, I look back at my first round of hires and I could not have gotten luckier. You can only consider that as luck, because I'm telling you, after that, the second round of interviews were not as good as that very first group of people that I attracted in, like the first generation Sugatan, who is still with me today. But it was like, but when I look back at when I was scripting to attract like the best stellar team members. And those are now my leads today. They are my greatest collaborators in the business who have helped me grow. It's insane. It really works. Like I think at least 5 times now it has like everything has, happened. So
I love it. You said something interesting there where like you talk about scripting to kind of, and I'm going to paraphrase and put words in your mouth, but, raise your vibration, raise your frequency to feel good. And, even though you said the words like you were scripting to get XYZ, what I love about the answers, there's a deeper layer there where you're also scripting because the process in and of itself is a pleasurable experience. It's something that you look forward to. Like the result comes next week or next month or in the next hour, but whenever it comes, you're actually enjoying the process, which I'm so excited to hear someone like you say, because that's the thing that I really push more than anything else, like in the book and that I'll be starting to do in the videos. It's so important that people enjoy the process, even for the sake of it, to almost like, let them come. Here we have someone that it worked in 2 months, and then within 4 months, there was a apparent backward step. But then after that, I'm sure it got like, it's going to be in waves. It isn't going to be this perfect. Sometimes it'll be a hockey stick, but sometimes it's going to come in waves. And it's kind of like only when you look at the big picture will you see it explode. Big picture maybe being 16 months of $1 million, which isn't so bad of a time to wait, if you ask me.
Yeah. Well, just to add to that, that is the real secret, is in the moment, even when things sort of don't work out the way that you anticipated it. You have, for me, what all of this spiritual work has taught me is to be grateful for the challenges, because I know that on the other side of it is a breakthrough that allows me to level up to the next level. And it really just is so independent. And, everybody is different. But for me, I'm trying to get to 1,000 levels. I know that for a fact, right? And so for me to get to 1,000 levels, I have to die 1,000 deaths. So that it's part of your own self-evolution too, because you won't level up until you really address some of these things that come up over and over again. I call it I view the whole thing as the ultimate Super Mario game with 1,000 levels. And so every turtle that comes up is a turtle, which is the thing in your life that you find coming up over and over again, that it's become apparent that it's not actually them, it's actually you, because so all different types of people are responding the same way, or you're getting the same outcome out of like totally different circumstances. And so then it's like, all right, this is a mega turtle that I have to experiment with different ways of like, okay, do I punch it on the right, or, you know what I mean? Like, and every time you attack that because a lot of us, this is like therapy, therapy is really just because you come across problems, you don't know how to solve them. A lot of times these are very deep personal things. And so you have to also sort of like use scripting as a tool. Like for me, scripting is like, okay, what surfaces are the things that are telling me this is in the way? And you have to address this, because life is also part of your self-evolution. And so you have to address this, and you can't get to the next level of where you want to go to until you address this. And sometimes you have to die a death and then start over again in that level, And so that's how, that's how I balance like being grounded and knowing that there are still going to be challenges. But my energy in it is like, all right, I know that if I get through this one, I'm grateful for the challenge. I'm grateful for the team member that highlights that this is a weak spot of the agency, which is really a weak spot of mine, right? And so that energy and that approach, feeling like you're getting something good out of that is like also part of enjoying the journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not so much like, oh my God, I don't want to wake up because this sucks. Like, I know I'm going to have to face this thing and, like, I don't want to have to deal with it. So then you're escaping. So it's, those are some of the very big lessons that I've learned, but it started there. It started with understanding, all right, like if this is a challenge that's being in my face, it's really because this is what I have to acknowledge in order to get what I want, to make way for that. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, Andrew. I don't know if you have any experience with that, but.
Well, you're inspiring me more than you realize. And it's kind of funny because I'm at a point right now, even like with the YouTube channel, where I'm just trying to add some variety, because like the book in and of itself is complete and should be complete. But, you know, even after we have things like that, I want to make sure that I just continue having like more fun stuff. So I'm coming up with new methods, or like good ones. So I'm like, listen to Kris. I might have to come up with like the mega turtle method and make sure to credit her. So, because like, that's right. Sometimes like when you're doing this, something to keep in mind is that there are levels, and there should be like, I think sometimes people come with this assumption that, oh, I'm going to focus, and if I manifest, and I'm going to be done. It's like, well, no, you're not. You're going to be done with that, but you're not going to be done.
It's true. Like I remember listening to Tony Robbins and Tom Bilyeu and Elon Musk, you know, when they actually came to their first like million, right? And I remember thinking like, oh my God, the day that'll come that I'll never have to worry about money ever again. Like, what does that feel like? What does that look like? And I can't wait. And Tony Robbins, Tom Bilyeu, Elon Musk, they're all like, okay, when you get there, you're just like, oh, like this is it, you know, like they're, you know, and it's not as, it really is true. And I always say experience is the best teacher. So, and I've had so much practice in mentoring my team verbally to say this, and yet they don't really get it until they experience it. But you really, you know, I learned that when I came to that first big milestone, I actually got depressed after that because I didn't know what was next. And I've seen my own team members go through that same cycle where they get that first like 5 figures per month, and then they don't know what to do next. And then they go through a very long, like a period of confusion, because now it's like, what do I need to wake up to? Because this has been the thing that has been driving me forever, for years. Now I'm here. What next, right? And then you have to go through another phase of evolution to understand what is that your next level, because the reality is nobody, literally nobody, sits in their house and does nothing. After that, you continue to push and you continue to try to level up. So yeah, it's funny because I've seen it multiple times now. Unless you are on a mission that is bigger than yourself, then you will go through that. Like, I'm confused. I don't know what to do next. You know, David and I both went in a small dip in depression because we became directionless. You know, we got everything that we wanted, that we've been wanting for so long. And then after that, it was like, okay, what's the point? What's next? What's the point of what we're doing now? You know, it's really interesting.
Yeah. You know, I follow, well, I mean, till recently, I mean, the world's changed so much and I've been focusing on different things, but I used to follow the UFC pretty closely. And I learned about a thing called, you know, post-fight depression, but it wasn't just the loser who was going through depression. It was also the winner, because they poured themselves into a fight camp, or sometimes they pour themselves into years long journey before winning the belt or the title. And it's like, what do I do now? There's actually a letdown even after they've made $1 million from that one fight. They got the title, all these things. It's the same process. Everyone goes through that thing where if something consumes you long enough, like by the time it finally happens, you're still the same person you're a new person on one level, but you're the same person on another. And you're going to feel like that same person, like making $100,000 versus $1 million versus even 10,000. You're still that person who's worrying about things. You know, you're still that person with the achy knee or the relationship issue, whatever it might be. And like, I love what you describe, because if I'm understanding right, it sounds like you are still finding, one, moments of gratitude no matter what, but two, you're finding gratitude even in the challenges, and you're using that as fuel to propel you to the next thing, which I suspect is also fuel that helps you do scripting and other things on such a consistent basis without feeling like you're not getting anywhere.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And it's really, it is fascinating about that. It is a real thing. Like I used to think that, and I know a lot of, people struggling with money thinks that a very wealthy person is lucky because they don't have any problems. But now I've learned that you're actually trading problems, right? Now you just have a very different set of issues to think about. And when think about these celebrities who go platinum album for music artists, their problems that they think about is, how do I outdo the last platinum album? And it's a very real. These are real problems that also exhibit the same level of anxiety as thinking about, how am I going to pay next month's bill? And I learned that with everything, and this is another thing too, because in business, you have so many doors in front of you that you don't know what's on the other side of them. But there's just a little sign, right? That says there's like a little sign that kind of tells you a little peek of what's on the other side. And the way that I make decisions is literally like, based on that sign, which one excites me the most, because it's like, you really just, the excitement is part of like, you're going to be resilient enough to solve all the other problems on that door. Because no matter what, you cannot escape problems. Like every single choice that you make, you're going to be faced with just a different set of challenges and problems that you have to work through. So whenever I think about a partner, right, or like a romantic partner, and it's like I'm complaining about these things, but it's not like, if I find somebody who matches all of these things that I'm complaining about, but they're also going to have this whole other part of them that I'm probably not going to like, and it's just, you're just trading one set of things for another. That, that's how I teach my team too. It's like, which problems do you want to solve? The door A, door B, or door C? That's because no matter what, that's what you're going to be faced with.
Right.
Yeah.
I love where this conversation is going. And I want to ask, because, I mean, obviously, we use the term scripting just because I kind of just threw it out there. I remember when you first described it, I think you said journaling. I'm wondering, Is that, from a law of attraction standpoint, the main, method or technique that you do, or do you do anything else in addition to that?
I actually feed this, okay, so let's just talk about the faith in knowing that every single thing that happens in my life, which you have to understand, my day-to-day, which is probably not the normal common person who is growing multiple e-commerce businesses, right? Multiple businesses. I am presented with every day multiple unknowns, right? And I'm presented every day I live, you can perceive it as at risk, right? Because now we're over 50 team members. We're going to 75 by the end of the year. And I'm managing risks on a day-to-day basis, which means like many, many unknowns that impact a massive ecosystem of at least 200 people at the very least, right? And so if I allow myself to freak out by that, and I'm actually very sane and very even and balanced, solely because of the faith and knowing that, and somebody, I used to see I still see a psychic. I saw my psychic 2 days ago, but they made the metaphor that you have to be like the rainfall that finds its way to the ocean. There will be all of these rocks in the way and maybe a mountain, but no matter what, you are fluid, that you go with the flow, and whatever path is in front of you that seems like has the least resistance, right? Which is interpreted as the path that I'm most excited about, because that is the one that I feel is the least, gives me the least resistance. And you will find your way to the ocean. You will find your path there. And that ocean represents in my scripting what I'm actually scripting.
Right.
So on a day-to-day basis, it's not just, I think the layer on top of that is just knowing that, hey, I didn't anticipate that this challenge will come to me that could be scary or is out of my control that I didn't anticipate, but I see that as a sign and have the total faith that this needs to happen and that it is actually the thing that needs to happen, and I'm grateful for it, and this is part of just enjoying the journey.
Mm.
And so I don't really deviate outside of that. There is no other practice other than crystals. Actually, I just started, using some crystals to, hold on my left hand for groundingness or for balance if I feel like a lot of anxiety. So yeah, I that's really my day-to-day, literally my state every single day is that.
I love that.
And you know what? It works out. I can't, like Andrew, I cannot have anticipated 90% of what has done in the business, like 0. And so I'm just like, oh, okay, like this,
like
the universe has my back, It really,
there
really
you go.
does.
And see, I love hearing that. Well, first of all, thank you for mentioning crystals. I mean, that's not my thing, but I think it's important bringing up because I think sometimes people think that it's either got to be only law of attraction or something else, like as if you can't do more than one thing. Like whatever feels good, there's nothing reason that excludes it. I have a podcast appearance where like the person wasn't into law of attraction. I'm like, well, let's turn this into mindset. Like it all comes just, what can you do with yourself to focus your energy or your attention or whatever it might be towards the right way? And I also love about your answer because like it sounds like scripting is like the organized thing that you do, but you're also taking with you an attitude just across the board of, all is well. Like Abraham Hicks would say, everything's okay. Everything's going to work out. Challenges suck, but that doesn't mean I can't get past them. And I specifically remember when I first met you, like we've only spent one time together in person, where I met you. I think it was either in Brooklyn or downtown Manhattan.
Yeah.
And the one thing I remember, I didn't even know about your success or your story then. I just remember starting a conversation with you, and immediately what I noticed was, wow, this person has such a warm, calm, even keel energy. And I always like find myself like attracted to people like that in the sense of like, I want to be around those people because that rubs off on me. Because I'm a go with the flow kind of guy, but I'm also very intense. So when I'm around someone like you, that's just a little bit like, I know you're intense too, but just in the sense of you're also really composed. Like I feed off of that in a way that it really balances me out. So thank you just for saying all those things and reaffirming for people that, it's about being consistent, but it's also just about having a good, healthy attitude across the board, even when things don't go right.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I also, I think that we project our expectations on other people about how they should be. And so I'm talking about a team dynamic here now. And you have to also, for me, I also understand that people are pieces to a puzzle. So every person is a unique piece that matches in some part or some way in my life. And so you have to honor them for their uniqueness. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but it just reminded me because I think that so much of each of us, like, people play such a big part in our lives. And so if you just actually allow people to be who they are and then just control how you react to them, instead of being like, oh, I wish you would be this way, or I wish you would do that, and I wish you would change, and it's like, you really just have to, like, they are part of the puzzle, and it's your kind of job to understand and just have faith. Okay, they're going to play a part. I just don't know what yet, but I have faith that it's going to be for something towards what I'm trying to aim at, because that is the energy that you're putting out there on a day-by-day basis. I really, really, really do believe that, because I've had practice. I've had 3 years of practice now, on a consistent day-to-day basis. So I don't know. I feel like I'm just trying to think about, the types of people that listen, like at the stage that I was in when I started listening and being open, is because I really just needed a change. I needed to start to go outside of myself to tap into my spirituality, my emotions, like the parts of us because we're so taught to be logical and intellectual and to be direct and to place logic in everything that we do, but we are multifaceted beings. And so we really have to start to embrace all of these things, even though we may not understand it. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. So
Yeah, that's totally landing. I get it. So question I was meaning to ask you, because again, I think, we both know that there's more than money, but the thing about the money is people link up with it and they understand that so well, which is kind of like why I'm all over this whole like 0 to a million in 16 months. Because people, even if it's not about money, if it's about relationships, about health, it's all about this really awesome out there goal that you never could have like imagined. And I want to ask you, obviously we kind of addressed like when things felt like they were going wrong, you stuck with it anyway, just because there was a level of, I guess, faith there, a level of trust, and you were just not going to be stopped. You're like, I'm doing this. With that in mind, when things started getting like really good, I mean, you hit 100,000, 200, 500. Did you have to struggle with a loss of interest in scripting? Like kind of like, did your motivation wane at all? Or were you just like, no, I'm going to keep going? Or were you even like more enthusiastic? And this is my long-winded way of saying, like, for any people out there like that are worried that they're going to lose interest or they're going to flake out, like, what might you say based on your experience of doing this? Like when things start to really go well and you're like, well, am I going to still script for a half hour a day when I've got $1 million problems now?
yeah, I think that, again, it really is like if you are scripting for your major milestone in your life, that is what's the seemingly impossible, and then you cross that threshold, that is when you have to go through a period of understanding what is your next milestone after that. So I would have to say that that's the only time I dipped, right? Because I just didn't know I had to go through self-reflection on what was actually important to me beyond that. So then it became, well, after the money was achieved, which was also part of it was the people, right? Like I allow my team to determine their what they get paid. So that is, a part of it was also mission driven too, but I knew that all of those things were going to contribute to that monetary success. I understood and I knew that 100%. So then once I came across that, it was like, now what's your true mission? And I feel like Elon Musk went through that, because then after he crashed his Ferrari, which he did, it was maybe not a Ferrari, but it was like one of those types of cars after he got his first millions. Then he was like, all right, what's next? And that's when he, really dreamed even bigger, which was to humanize space. So, and that's what happens, and you get to the level of Jeff Bezos, you're really like, all right, this is the next level. This is the next mountain, because you've just achieved so many mountains. But I think that you don't really know that until you break through all of your perceptions about what's impossible and you get that first breakthrough, and then you go for even more what's impossible, to the level of Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, where they're saying these seemingly crazy things as humanizing other planets, So yeah, so that's the only time that I went down on the scripting. But as soon as I understood what was important to me, I started scripting again for that next milestone. Yeah.
So that's really cool. I'm so glad that we brought this up, because I hear that and I'm like, okay, well, this actually means a couple of things to me. Like, one, somebody can anticipate this now, hearing from someone like you that's done this, and they're like, let me think of 10 milestones and I'll script make them maybe the first 5 and see how that goes and have these lying in wait. But also, this to me sounds like, and this is a revelation for me right now, this also sounds like a really good hack for even higher potency scripting, where you script as the person that's already achieved it, saying, what do I want now? So you're putting yourself in that headspace of already getting those first 3 or 4 milestones, and it makes it even more of a convincing vibration that you're sending out that signal to the universe. So, wow, I'm inspired. I never even thought of it on that level before.
Yeah, no, really. I mean, that's what I've learned, right? I mean, even now, my business lawyers, they were like, which I had a meeting on Friday, and they were like, it'll be very helpful for us to know how to structure, because we were talking about how to restructure our Sugatan LLC into a C corp. And my business lawyers and my accounting team was saying, like, it'll be very helpful for us to know what your plans are 3 years out, which I've only have a plan for until the end of 2021. So they're like, it'll help for us so that we can give you the proper analysis on how much it'll save you on all of these things. It's just like this whole structural optimization. And so I asked Bob, my psychic, 2 days ago. I was like, all right, I've never taken this step to actually plan 3 years out. Is this going to be, is it going, should I take that step? Because it's very difficult for me to predict what's going to happen 3 years out in the business. And if I take that step, will the same thing happen as I've been doing it a year out? And his guides and my guides were like, absolutely, yes, it still applies. No matter how many years out you want, you can be that intentional that far out. So, but I feel like, that requires a lot of knowing who you are, because like part of life is also self-evolving, so like what you wanted 5 years ago is not what you want today. It's just evolved, right? So yeah, but 3 years doesn't seem like that far out, but yes, you can totally like do that,
And, think this, like, you can give yourself permission to, like, listen, this is what I want now. And if I change my mind a week from now, I'll just script something different.
Exactly.
It's that easy, right?
Exactly.
So I want to make sure, because I'm sure there will be people that watch this interview, and there's always a curiosity layer of, like, now that I know Kris is awesome and she's on it, I want to do it exactly like her, which I don't recommend, but will satisfy their curiosity anyway. So I guess I'll ask you, when you were scripting, am I correct in assuming that it's handwritten in notebooks, or were you typing?
Evernote.
Oh, interesting.
I use Evernote. So I have a notebook. I have multiple notebooks, but one of them is called Daily Focus. Mm-hmm. And I basically write in it every single day. So this is where I place all the notes about all the things that I am trying. It's all the things that I am building. So one of the things that I believe is one of the most exciting things about living in this physical world is that we get to create. And scripting is tied into that as a foundation, because you're beginning to harness your individual power to create and build. And we all have this. And so scripting to me is the beginning of it. And then each day is me putting one brick on top of the other in the things that I can control. What happens after that, I'm open, but I'm going to still build one brick after the other. So everything is in an Evernote. I start off with basically 10 minutes, and then I do a line that basically it's me leading up to increasing my energy to be so pumped to work on this thing that I'm going to be working on today. And I put in all of my good juju into this block of 2 hours that I am designing a solution for a particular problem that I'm focusing on resolving or solving or being proactive or envisioning, whatever it is. And then I continue to do that and section it off, into sections, into blocks on my Evernote. And I'm always, in the top of that note is always my scripting, because this is how I stay focused on literally. I think one thing that people do struggle with is staying focused on a day-over-day basis. And I was one of them too, where I was like, one day I'm over there and one day I'm over here. But I understood that it's really important to stay consistent in your focus. And this is it serves as that for me. When I'm working through my Evernote, I can just go back to the top of the note and I know what I'm focusing on.
Cool. Yeah. So just for clarity, are you doing this on your phone with your thumbs, or are you typing on a keyboard?
So I type on my keyboard.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
And
satisfied. I know there's someone out there. They're like, okay, exactly did Kris do? So is she all thumbs? Is she on the keyboard? Like, because I'm sure, like, if you told me that you were writing, I would be like, do you script or do you print? Because people tend to fall into those details, and I say if it helps them stay on track, all the more power to them. But you've demonstrated something here because a lot of people assume that you have to handwrite it, and you are proof positive that no, you can type it out or you can do
I'm
whatever
all
you
about
want, whatever works
I'm
for
all
you.
about efficiency. I actually have two screens. I have my laptop and then I have my iPad, and I always have my Evernote up.
Awesome.
So here's my execution, and then I have my Evernote up. So I switch to, and this is the same note that my scripting is on, that I also put all of my notes into as the day goes by, and I have to, it's all of my brainstorming, pre-planning notes. Yeah, that goes right below all of my scripting notes.
Cool. So if someone walked up to you and they're like, hey, Kris, I want to try this scripting thing. I'm totally into it. It sounds like it's a good idea, but it sounds like, you've really mastered this in the sense that you stay on top of it. You do it every day. And I'm sure you've tried different things out. Kris, what is your advice on the best ways for me to really be powerful with this? What do you think I can do? What direction can I take to make sure this is a really fun, potent experience for myself?
Well, I think Tim Ferriss actually said this, and it comes off as cheesy, but it's not. It's actually very effective, which is to start off with feeling really grateful. That's the very first lines. Is this like, thank you? And I always revert back to, I remember when I was a waitress, and I hated the fact that my time was taken up by something that I just felt like I had to do to pay the bills, which so many of us are in that position. And now even just that thing I use as this source of great gratefulness that I actually have full control over my entire day. I have the absolute freedom, despite all of the stacks of problems that are waiting for me to be solved, because I can wake up and say, well, this person sucks and this person brought all of these issues to me, and this founder is not doing the right thing to scale the business. Like, I'm telling you, there are a lot of challenges in my position and in all of my team members' positions. But you really have to start with like, oh my gosh, I am in the most grateful place that when I was a waitress, I would beg to be in this very position that I'm in right now. But it's also like, I'm learning to like really enjoy the small things. Like even when I get to bed and I get to stretch out, and that feeling that you have when you're finally like in bed and you get to stretch out and sprawl out. I'm moving into really even getting into that level of gratefulness in that moment, because I also understand that no matter what's happening all around me, it really is about the moment. And one thing that I've also learned, and it's every day, is being so conscientious about how you're reacting and thinking about situations, that when I start to feel anxiety or start to get angry, I really have to be like, choose the other side of this. So in the mornings, going back to your original question, really having that first line to think about just how good your life really is, right? You're healthy. If you're not healthy, right, you have opportunities. You have a laptop, you have an internet to watch this YouTube video. I mean, that alone is massive opportunity. I live currently in Mexico, and the fact that a lot of these residents here can't speak English, they have closed themselves up to many opportunities to make a US-based income or to triple their hourly rate, right? Because they don't speak English. They can't, that they have to resort to the wage that they are given inside Oaxaca, right? But So just that alone, like those are so many things, your friends that give you love and all of these things. There's so many. And so just pick two to start with and just start your first line as thank you, and I usually start my first 2 or 3 sentences about that. And that's the beginning of me starting to get really excited about my life and the day. And then that actually translates throughout the day. Like I was just in the shower and I went I just squealed at excitement about like all of the things that are coming up, even though I had this large meeting with my team about teaching them how to solve problems, because I feel like I gotta, confronting them, do I need to come in and manage this process, or can I trust you guys to do it? Because right now you guys aren't doing it, and that could be a source of anxiety and frustration and all of these things. But in the end, I let them all know this is all a learning for all of us. This is a learning opportunity. Now, do you want to step into intentionally learning, or do you want to step into complaining about how hard it is? Because I need to know. And whatever it is that you decide, I'm okay with, but I need to know how I need to react to this situation if you do decide that you don't want to be a part of solving these issues. So it's like, and then I went in the shower and I squealed with excitement about, little things like, I'm so grateful for the team that they all said, yes, I am going to step into a better version of me to grow into this and what is needed for the account to thrive. Right. So I don't know, it's a very long thing, but that's a beginning. I love it. Just say, thank you.
So you say, thank you for, or do you say, I'm so happy and grateful now that, or like, what's a typical way, the way you would speak with it?
I think it is just what comes naturally to you. The very first words that come naturally to you, because that's who you are. Nice. And you have to honor that, So for me, it's like literally, thank you. I think I call it my spiritual army. So I think my spiritual army, I literally take the time to thank God, my angels, my spirit guides, which I know their names, at least the ones that have come forward through channeling sessions with my psychic, because there are other ones. And then those who have passed that I've used a medium to communicate with, and they have agreed to participate in helping me out in my business. I have a spiritual army. I'm not joking. They do their part.
I love it.
So I say thank you to them, and I say thank you for doing their little thing about, all these things that I'm blind to that they're doing in order to bring the people, the opportunities, they're matching it. They're the ones that are responding to the energy that I'm putting out there about what I want.
Awesome. Got 1 or 2 questions popping in my mind right now. One of them was like, I know that you hit a plateau when you first hit those milestones and you worked your way through that. I'm wondering though, in the process of scripting every single day and really sticking with it, before or after the milestone, did it ever come to a point where it felt like it was harder to get into it, or it felt like you couldn't focus? And if so, it looks like you're nodding your head. What did you do constructively to get yourself past it, if anything?
Well, I actually had to write through what was bothering me. So, it's never been that every single day there's a problem that that doesn't bother me so much that scripting will solve. So I really just work through, and this is when I cross over to the fear aspect of it. Like I'm afraid about this not working out the way that it needs to in order for us to continue growing, for example, which is very real threats, right? That I've come across multiple times in the business. And sometimes it's like somebody is in the way of that, or that this person just needs to change how they're behaving, and then we'll break through that. And so I have to write through and organize my thoughts around it to calm myself down. Mm-hmm. To then get to what is it that I can control, which is really like either I create more problems by arguing with somebody and say, it's you're not doing this and that's why it's not happening. Or I take the lead by looking at myself and thinking about how am I contributing to this being a problem? Because the reality is that if there is a problem, both of you are contributing to it, and that both of you have to own up to making a change. And that's very hard for people to hear, I think. But I've learned that that's what's it. And so when you take ownership and you say, I'm going to improve because I'm self-aware enough to know that I'm contributing to this problem, and you make that change, the other person typically follows. And they take ownership over what area that you're doing. So I usually just work through it. And then I know that this is an opportunity for me to work through this particular turtle. It's a turtle. And I got to do my part to see how I can... what can I control, you know, because I can't predict how the turtle moves or how it's going to dodge me or whatever. And so then it's just like, all right, just attempt and keep attempting to solve beating this turtle, basically.
Oh, this is so awesome. So what we went in so many different directions here, and I'm so grateful to like the level of insight that you shared, because I think it's really important to hear people listen to you who's just so open and get your perspective so they can carry that with them into what they're doing with the scripting. Is there anything that we have not addressed yet, something that you wanted to say to people that might be listening for this, looking for guidance, whether it's law of attraction guidance, scripting guidance, life, like anything? Is there something that we didn't get to share that you wanted to impart for people?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's in the context of business, but it's really all of this is applicable to every area of your life, you know? And I chose business because I think that it challenges you and me in multiple dimensions of being human, which is psychology, leadership, money, management, logic, intellect, emotion. I mean, the whole, you know, for me, it challenges multiple dimensions of being human. And that's why I love this journey so much, because I'm going for mastery, you know, before I die and exit, you know, this is part of my personal evolution. So, and it's relationships too, you know, I think that, so, you know, it's applicable to every single thing, because not everybody is going to be driven by money. People are driven by relationships, you know, and that doesn't necessarily mean a romantic partner, but just the community, you know, cultivating a really strong relationship with the people around you that you care about. It might be mission driven, like protecting the earth and the planet and reversing some of the effects of, you know, mass manufacturing. You know, it applies to all of it. And it could even be on a micro level, just in a relationship with your kids, you know, all of that. You just, even when it deals with other people, because for me, I'm an agency, so my success depends on 50 other people, right? And you have to balance this, like, I know what I want, and you just have to focus on that type, and you'll see people naturally purge from that if that is not the right person that is going to give you that in your life. And sometimes that means relationship. And sometimes that means not talking to your best friend for a little bit until they sort of like understand and they get to a similar level energetically as you. You know, I know it sounds hard and tough, but I've gone through it multiple times and it's not that bad. Everything works out in the end. Literally everything works out in the end.
Awesome. So bear with me. I'm going to sing your praises here, because I really want to thank you, and I want to let everyone watching this understand right now. And we kind of, you know, you've been so gracious, but just because what I know about you and your business and your responsibilities, just so it's clear for everybody out there, you are a very busy person. Obviously, your time is extremely valuable. You're not, you know, this isn't promoting your business. You came here out of the goodness of your heart and out of a sense of generosity to share this information that you didn't have to do. So I really want to highlight that, because I want people to take what you've said in the past hour or however long we've been talking. Like, I want them to take it to heart. I want people to really understand that you're just here giving. I mean, I'm going to put a link to your company in the video, just in case people want to learn more about you, because maybe there is a client waiting, but you didn't come here for that. You came here to share and to help people grow. And I wanted to thank you for that. And obviously this is the part, you know, I'm like, tell people like the video, subscribe, hit the bell notification. And you might not know, but I have this thing where I'm giving out, like every month for now, I'm giving out my Gravity of the Cosmos 90-day program. And I pick one person that commented across the month. And, you know, I share that with them. But this talk really just got me so much. So I've got actually, I'm going to give 2 away this month. One to all the other videos, but this one, I just want 20 comments on this because I want people sharing something valuable they learned from what you said. And I'm going to pick just for this video, at least 20 comments, 1, maybe 2. You know what, 2? I decided 2 people, as long as we got over 20 comments, 2 people are going to win Gravity of the Cosmos because I really want them to take this to heart and implement it and try it and understand that you can do it, anyone can do it. And I'm so grateful for you being here today, Kris.
What a gift. And it really is about what you do with that information that you're presented. That's everything. And also, we have a problem that we don't know how we can make room for any more clients currently. So we are in a very good position that I don't have to self-promote. We've never had to. It's just been results. And it hinges on this foundation that I talked about. It really does.
Yes,
so.
That actually reminds me, if I remember the link that we have, it's an application link. People have got to apply. They can't just sign up. It's got to be a good fit.
Yep. And we only have 2 slots opening up on August 15th. And already we haven't even made the announcement. And those 2 slots are already called for. We already have a waiting list for those 2 slots. We never even made the announcement yet. This is just from referrals from our current partners that are bringing in all of these accounts. And we had the meeting earlier, like, how are we going to handle this? Should we even, hire more team members to handle this? And it's a great it's a great problem to have. And it really hinges on this discipline that I do on a day-to-day basis, I swear.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said it, because I was about to say, for everyone listening, these kinds of things is when momentum carries over. It's like you get a little bit of a boost in that first month, maybe more second, like it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, because most people won't realize that they are growing into a larger, more complete version of themselves. I mean, they're always complete, but a more self-actualized version of themselves through this process.
Yes, it is compounding. So yes, I did $1 million in less than a year and a half, but that $1 million has now become $3.5 million in just the last 6 months alone. So, it compounds on itself. It really does.
And I'm not much of a gambling man, but if they ever put Vegas odds out on you hitting $1 billion status, you know where I'm putting my money.
Thanks, Andrew. I
Kris,
really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. This is so awesome. I can't wait to hear what people think of this. You are a gift. Thank you. Yay.